Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Judas. With Judas there's always that question, when do I use my Book of Belial in order to use it as effectively as possible? And I think that's a very important question to answer, especially in the first floor when you only have one red held, and your Book of Belial is not only your defensive option, but it's also your offensive options. And by defensive, offensive, I just mean that when you use it, you're gonna clear the room much faster, meaning that there's less chance of enemies actually hitting you. So for that reason, it's important to know how to use it and when to use it. And I think that's an easy question in some cases and a hard question in other cases. Obviously, if you have just a bunch of big rooms and you enter a room and it just has a bunch of spiders in it, or maybe just a bunch of enemies which are just usually hard to deal with or annoying to deal with, then use the Book of Belial, because it's a large room, it's going to give you 2 charges at the end. Usually the big rooms are much harder than the small rooms, you're going to be using it against most enemies, and it's just going to be an effective use of your active item. But if you have just a bunch of small rooms, then it's a much harder question to answer, because it depends on how far are you into the floor, maybe how many enemies you saw up until this point, where is the boss room. Maybe if you do find the boss room and you see that there are some unexplored rooms, maybe you would want to use it to one of those. But just in general, I would say whenever you have just a bunch of small rooms, it really comes down to judgment. And I would say that whenever you enter a room and you say, okay, there's a good chance I'm going to get hit in this room, just because of the enemies, maybe I'm not comfortable playing with them, and maybe there's just a bunch of spiders and I'm just bad at dodging spiders for whatever reason. And if you know that using the Book of Belial will severely reduce your chances of actually getting hit, then I say do it. And if it, of course, they're just saying, if you know that there's a possibility of getting one more charge out of Book of Belial, because if there's no chance of you getting another charge, there's no point in doing it. You're better off usually saving it for the boss, because it is going to be harder. But if there is a chance of you actually getting another charge, then just use it. Of course, take the certain risk or take the certain chance of reducing damage, and don't focus that maybe it would be a better used on the boss fight, because the certain thing you know is that if you use it, you're not going to take any damage, but there's still a chance that the boss fight will actually be easy enough and that you won't need your Book of Belial in order to beat him without getting damaged. And of course, like I said, I only say this if there's a chance of you actually getting yet another charge, and if there isn't, it's usually just better to spend it on the boss. With that said, I do have a cutesy play here, and I do try to replace my Book of Belial because I don't want to worry about the things I just talked about. Now, of course not. What I do want to do is get an IV bag, because an IV bag is one of those items that really makes or breaks the daily run. And I don't mean in the sense that if you don't get it, you're just losing, or maybe if you get it, you're going to get overpowered as soon as possible. But what I'm saying is, if a person finds an IV bag, they usually have a much higher chance of actually getting a really strong run than opposed to the person who didn't find it. And I think it's very important to realize this in dailies, because a lot of people play these dailies and a lot of people say, okay, those top players always get lucky. And to a certain extent that is true, but you do have to see those opportunities and really go hard for them, and just realizing what they can bring you. And in this case, what happened is, first of all, we had the blood bank, and that's great because the blood bank is great. You donate hearts, you get money, you can spend money in the shop, but even better, it has a chance of giving you that beloved IV bag that I was just talking about. So we can do that, and I did play it a bit, and I just traded a bunch of hearts, got a bunch of coins in return. It was great, but at the end of the floor I noticed that I only have 2.5 hearts remaining, and I was debating, should I use that health on the blood bank machine in hopes of maybe it giving me an IV bag, or should I use that health on the devil beggar, which was in the next room, in hopes of actually getting a better item. And I think in that situation, when I only have 4 plays remaining, it's a better idea to actually play the devil beggar, because getting an actual payout of the IV machine or the blood bank machine is already low enough, and there's always a chance that you just get a blood bag. And while blood bag is okay, I would rather have a random devil deal item from the devil beggar. And the devil beggar, remember, when you have 4 health, you can actually play him 8 times, which makes him very likely to actually pay out when you do trade your health away from him. So that's what I decided to do. With my last 4 hits remaining, or 4 health remaining, or 2 health, but 4 plays, I decided to use that health to play the devil beggar in hopes that it would give me a substantial item which would be more useful than a chance of getting an IV bag. And that's exactly what I did. And surprisingly, I got 2 temperance cards, which was just ridiculous. And I went into the following in the next room where the blood bank machine was. I set all of them next to each other, and then I just played them in succession, because as soon as one damaged me, I could play the other 2 without getting hit again. So I did that a bunch of times, and I just got a bunch of coins of it. And eventually one of them played out with an ivy bag. And the ivy bag in this situation enabled me to just get a bunch of money. But even better, on this floor we got the cracked dice trinket. And you can see me doing some shenanigans on the screen right now, which seems very breaking, and that's the purpose. The cracked dice, what it does, whenever you get hit, there's actually a chance it will proc one of the dice effects. And one of the dice effects is either it will reroll your stats, it will reroll the items, or it has a chance to reroll the consumables on the floor, so it can give you chests, and then those chests of course can give more consumables. And of course, via just playing the ivy back, you're just gonna get a bunch of coins, and then those coins get rerolled into better things. And eventually, when you're going to get a golden key, you can open the golden chest for free, and the golden chest will have a bunch of items in them. And then the items of course do make for a very good run, and you can then use that to beat the game essentially without much of a hassle. So just having those two items really allows you to break the game very well. And of course, besides that, we also get a lot of consumables, and those consumables increase our points, and then we can do some crazy things with it. So I just skipped through it because it did take like 10 minutes. It's probably one of the most annoying and perturbing ways to break the game, just because it requires a lot of patience, because there's always the chance of a troll bomb spawning, and you have to watch out for that. Not only that, there's always a chance that you'll get the tick as a trinket, and when you pick up the tick, then you can't pick up the cracked dice again. And that just kind of puts a blunder on everything that you're doing at that point, because you're really trying to break the game. What is usually also, this combination is also usually useful if you have a run that doesn't go only to mom, but I mean the run that doesn't go to the end but only goes to maybe like mom. Then you can use this combination to force an AOS rune into existence. And by force, I mean just play it a bunch until eventually you will get one, just because there will be just so many consumables in that room. And eventually I did get another AOS rune that I kind of lost while rerolling. You didn't see that because I cut it out, but what happened is I had an AOS rune from the 3rd floor. I accidentally set it down, I rerolled it, but thankfully got another one back later. So, but whenever you do it, there's a few tips and tricks to make it just a little bit easier. So whenever you get something like an AOS rune that you know you want to save, just go into the next room that you know you won't be rerolling, and just set it down there, because you can always pick it up and you don't have to finagle by picking it down and back up again. And that's exactly what I did after I realized my mistake. And of course, these are things that sound very obvious in hindsight, or maybe when you think about them, but in the moment you're just excited to see just a bunch of chests, and maybe you just forget those basics, or maybe you just forget that you're a human being who has a logic system in his brain designed for logical reasoning to kind of make those things just a bit easier. But besides that, you also are gunning, besides for a powerful run, which I got via Tech X plus Brimstone, which was one of the combinations that I always wanted to have, but it just never showed up as of playing Afterbirth Plus. So I kind of decided, okay, this is the day I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be shooting Brimstone blood lasers out of my face, and I don't even care if it takes me 20 minutes to do it, I'm going to do it. And thankfully I did do it, and I wanted to get the guppy as well, but sadly there are no guppy items in the treasure room pool, which is where the cracked dice pulls it from, or the golden chests, and of course when you reroll them with the cracked dice, then you get them again. I did have a chance of picking up chaos, but I hate chaos, so I didn't do that. So that's the reason why I didn't complete my guppy transformation. But more importantly is I was also banking on getting a Forget Me Now, because we can use the Forget Me Now. We're obviously powerful enough to go to the end. But what we can do with the Forget Me Now, we can use it on the last floor of the fight or of the run we are going in, and then do that floor again. And besides, it's just giving us more rooms to explore, meaning more points, getting more consumables, just beating more bosses, meaning that we just get more points in general. There's also a chance that if the first floor, so let's say we go to the shoal and we say that the shoal has a sacrifice room, we can use the sacrifice room to go to the dark room and then do the dark room again. But if we do the shoal and it doesn't have a sacrifice room and we reroll shoal, then the second shoal can actually have a sacrifice room. So not only does it give us more chances or a higher opportunity to get more score, it also gives us more chances to actually go even further, and in essence, I guess this is yet another chance to give us more score when you think about it. But what I'm saying is that it's not only good for the enemy you kill or the rooms you explore, but it also gives you more chances to get some other things going on, especially on the shoal fight, because in this floor you can't use AOS runes to go any deeper. so the sacrifice room is the only way to progress further without any other items or alternations that you kind of need. But sadly, no sacrifice rooms were inside, and if there were, I'm sure that the overall scores would be so much higher in this run. But as it turned out, it actually was how it was. I was surprised that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people have found this combo, and I don't imagine a lot of people did in general. I mean, when I say a lot of people found this combo, I mean just that a few of the scores I've seen are impossible unless I think you found this combo, because the run wasn't that good up until this point. But then again, I did breakfast myself, so I don't know how the run would have went, just because any item beyond that point was, for me, was breakfast, and the breakfast just doesn't do anything, and some other people might have found better items later on. But with that said, it was a very, very interesting run, and we did finish 11th, which is what I meant when I said that a lot of people found the score or this combo and a lot of people didn't. And I think the part of that is just because it takes a lot of time to actually do it, and you have to kind of get and play the Devil Beggar in order to get those 2 Temperance cards, and then you have to play 3 Temperance cards at the same time in order to get the Ivy Bag. And yeah, sure, when you think about it, it's unlikely that some people would do it, but at the same time, I think it's a good idea to play the Devil Beggar at some point if you have health, because getting a random Devil Deal item is better than just a chance of getting an Ivy Bag. So maybe that's the optimal play there, but not a lot of people realize it. But at the same time, it did take a lot of finagling to actually get to that point. Now, if I did only manage to get to boss rush in time, that would be great, our score would be even higher, but with how it turned out, I'm very satisfied. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.